I'm so excited to be here. Sydney and I can talk about our background in this and how we met, which is wonderful. I'm Candice Mattio. I'm an assistant professor of music teaching and learning at the USC Thornton School of Music. I'm also the coordinator of our grad popular music teaching and learning degree, and I teach courses in that program. In addition to some other kind of things I teach, my focus is in creativity, creative thinking, and I also teach pedagogy classes in music technology and composition and improv. And electronic, most of the stuff that I do is like electronic music, mostly in the box. I have a pretty open philosophy about using AI tools in my classroom, and I work with the students from day one about how to both use the tools safely, how to ensure that they're used as support resources, and that they're embracing their own ideas and critical thinking. I just want them to learn how to be accountable and professional. This is essential for figuring out how to revamp my courses to provide maximum learning experiences possible. Students submit a form with each assignment that they do, whether that's a writing assignment, as in like a research type writing paper assignment, or like music writing assignment that's tailored to the project. And it gives them all these kind of check boxes and a thing and information to fill out so that they tell me how they're using AI tools if they did use them. So music writing projects have a different use element than academic projects, but it's included in my syllabus and we talk about it from day one. In my tech classes, I ask them to get the pro version of Moises. They don't have to purchase a textbook or anything like that. But in my comp and improv classes, sometimes we use the free, although I've had several of them geek out and want to pay for the upgrade. But the key for me is that I want to give them permission and have openness and teach them about accountability and professionalism. Or they're just going to use AI anyway, hide it, and then that's no good for any of us. So I'll start with a practical productivity use example that I personally do. As an educator, I have to assess a lot of projects. And if you do similar work, how time demanding this can be. And I love hearing their work and learning from their journeys and artifacts, but sometimes it's helpful to have a tool to make things a little more efficient. Also, FYI, I don't have perfect pitch. So checking work, if I have them do analysis, means periodically checking things on the keyboards to see where we're accurate, which can take a really long time. One example of this is evaluating grad exam projects, which for me helps get a sense of where their weak areas might be in general knowledge and make sure we can provide support in advance. We ask students to write original music. They have to do an analysis, arrange it, and record it. For the analysis part, it's expected that they have some understanding of music theory, but there's a multitude of approaches to this, especially with popular music students. I'm often only given about 48 hours to go through sometimes 15 or more multi-part projects while dealing with faculty meetings, scheduling, student onboarding, and prepping my own classes. So many of you, I'm sure, can relate. So if I upload it to Moises, for example, their analysis tool, there's in different versions, like on the web, the desktop app and things like that, there's like a variety of different ways that we can look at this. But just looking at this already is really helpful from a productivity perspective. There's an option to move between standard chord and lead sheet chord symbols. Some of them might write it in different ways. It helps me give a check-in from an analysis perspective. There's also a capo option, which is really great because some students will write using capo, but they don't always handle that the right way in the analysis or how they write out their sheet. Something to know with any tool or human, it isn't perfect. And Moises acknowledges this as always, which I love. And it's sometimes, just so you know, like the chord analysis doesn't always catch like certain inversions or slash chords, to be careful if that's part of your analysis. But I will say these things keep getting better. And regardless, it's cut my time down tremendously for this part of the assessment. When I teach composition pedagogy, it's very much a class of come as you are. And composition simply means creating new music, so any genre. Most students aren't comp students or majors, even though I occasionally get a few majors. Other than a little songwriting, maybe some beat making or counterpoint homework, most of them have very little experience doing this, especially if they're classically trained. So it's just to get them to think about stepping in the door, doing it every day, and thinking backwards about how to teach it. Creative ideas don't just come out of thin air. They're usually based on something that inspires us, what we hear, or we're curious about. Say, developing ideas for writing music. So when I'm working with my comp students, especially those that have little experience writing their own music, I might ask them to take note of songs or pieces they hear over a week that have something particularly attractive to them. Then I see if they find something they keep going back to again and again, and we keep narrowing. So what is it about that music that they love so much? And we keep focusing until we find aspects that they start describing. And then we start using this as a kernel of creativity. So oftentimes it means we need to do a bit of analysis to find out what's going on. I do this myself all the time, constantly making notes of songs that I like. And I'm like, I want to figure out how they did that, reverse engineer it. So I have them download the song and upload it to Moises. David, if you could go back to the STEM screen. Awesome. Thank you. And say, this is what my student brought in. Let's listen to this I think we've got time. David, if you would mind. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. So just to give you a little taste, say the student is like, I really like this part. David, if you wouldn't mind going to around 1 minute, 42 seconds. So say they say this part, and we have it up right now, but anyone in the room could help us out. If you are a songwriter, you're familiar with this kind of stuff. This is the bridge. From a teaching perspective, I already know that they say this section and they can't identify it. I know that we need to talk about form, which is really helpful. David already has it up on the bottom right. There's the sections option that's already split. This is a really great simplified tool. We could go down that road and I could start teaching form and things like that with that student and talking about the differences if that's the goal. I could dig in a little bit more and say the student, I ask them why they like it, what parts about it they like. And they say, I really like how it's exposed. So maybe I isolate a little bit. Maybe if you can, David, isolate or solo out the bass part and the other, which is one of the main things playing there. Could you play that for a second? Awesome, thank you. So we get this kind of ethereal type feel, but the movement is mostly in the bass part. We could dig into that bass part a little bit. We could look into the chords. I could then have them, there's a bunch of different things that we could play with by tweaking the music itself. At this point, I'm just trying to get them to think about the elements they want to build from that was really attractive, things they want to learn how to emulate, reverse engineer, or utilize themselves to build other things from. There's the key detector, which we have up at the top. Awesome. We could play around with that. Are you comfortable writing? What is this? E flat major. Are you comfortable with that key? But depending on that, we can mess around with things. We could get it into something more comfortable for them, play with the BPM and things like that. The next step might be to have them the export, which you can do at the top, those specific stems or whichever ones they want, and then pull them into a DAW and have them sample some of this stuff, just that section, and maybe start building from there. It's just one idea. I also want to add that although this seems like quick and dirty tricks, it doesn't negate the need for theory knowledge, depending on the context. In some ways it's fitting and some it might not be. But it's a great way to lead a horse to water. It keeps theory from getting in the way of creativity, which I really appreciate. These are just a couple of tips and tricks that I might use, again, from a very kind of entry level perspective, working with students that might not be that comfortable or have a lot of experience writing or thinking about creating their own music. And it's like flipping this idea of analysis on its head, but showing them the value of that and why it's important for them to be able to do that, to learn about music and learn about how to begin writing music. And then also just that kind of assistive productivity tool that I use all the time. Super cool. I love this tool. I use it almost every single day.
You are amazing, Candice. If you haven't gotten to know Candice or anybody in this call for that matter, please do. Just such a great, oh, we've got APME friends saying hi from Liverpool. Oh. Hello from Liverpool. Hi, guys. This was fantastic. And as you'll see, there's so much to cover here. We're scratching the surface. And again, we'll have more of these.